Yeah, but that's what it's all about, right? You know, because a lot of people, they have an aspiration to do something, but they don't know how they're going to get there. And there's so many questions, but if you really focus on the end goal and know why it is that you want to do what it is that you want to do, you will get there.
Welcome to the Less Trodden Path podcast, a dedication to untangling the world in a raw and honest way, following your gut and your dreams, no matter what they may be. Often they are different to what is known as the norm, a step out of the comfort zone, the path less tread. We are here to help inspire you to take your own path by sharing both our own journey and the stories of others too, making it clear along the way that anyone can do it, whatever it may be, with all the ups and downs, the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly included. Dreams take time, but if you put your all into it, time doesn't mean anything. After coming across a small snippet of Danielle's journey from cardiac arrest to van life with 5 cats and 1 dog, we decided to reach out to hear more and to help spread the awareness she is so passionate about sharing. Danielle dives into her journey from the past few years and shares how she went from her hard-hitting, overworking lifestyle to selling everything she owned to move into nature and focus entirely on what matters most, health. She is one of the most compelling and powerful stories we've ever had the pleasure of hearing and has lived and continues to live a very unique life with many inspiring moments to share. This is Danielle's very own Less Trodden Path.
Inside the machine, it's just not for me. No spending my savings, cause I don't have any. There's too many places to go. I'll be spending all my time living out my bucket list.
Yeah, no, I'm good. This is my first podcast, so...
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on because I remember, obviously, Beth and Jake sharing about kind of spending some time with you. And then they obviously did the video of your tour, and it was really intriguing. Yeah, I bet it was so interesting though to hear about the animals. But then obviously you also mentioned about kind of your story, and I actually messaged Beth and I was like, do you mind if I contact them? And then do you think that, you know, Danielle or Luke or both or whoever would be up for kind of sharing a bit more? And she was like, I honestly think so. So, I'm really glad that you are.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's super cool. But like I've said on Instagram and stuff, like, it is just a super chill chat just to kind of, you know, inspire people a bit more, but also just to chat and just to get to know each other more and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's what I really want to be able to do, motivate and inspire people, you know. Been through a lot of experiences, and definitely. I am where I am now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't wait to hear more, but from what we've already kind of seen, it's so fascinating.
Cool. Well, that's nice.
Yeah. But do you have any kind of questions before we kind of dive into it a bit more, or...
Go.
No, do you just start recording this? Are you both there?
Yes, Ben's
Yes,
here as well.
I'm
Ben's here. Yeah. He just kind of...
Hi, I thought I heard you background there. Hi.
He records and pops in occasionally to if he has a question or something. How are you guys anyway? Like, I saw that you were in is it a hotel or an Airbnb at the moment?
No, we were only there for 4 or 5 days. We did a Tony Robbins UPW Unleash the Power Within course. Are you familiar with Tony Robbins?
No, but is this I actually saw you were doing some... Oh, tell me more, because I did see that you were doing something, some sort of course.
I think I've heard of Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd recognise that name.
Some people have heard of him, some people haven't, and he's been around for a very, very long time, but it seems like the kind of newer generation of people haven't heard of him as much. But he's a motivational speaker, and he shares his experiences and how he's turned things around, and makes a lot of money doing it, which enables him to be able to distribute the money in a way that he sees fit possible to certain charities and foundations around the world.
Okay.
And so it was like an online virtual Zoom conference thing. It was on for 14 hours a day for 4 days straight. And because of the times, because we're in Spain right now, obviously, and it was being done in America, We started at 4 in the afternoon and it went on till 4 in the morning.
Wow.
So yeah, it was pretty intense.
I bet. So what did you do exactly?
There are some motivational speakers that come on. There are a lot of exercises that you have to do to be able to break through on certain limiting beliefs that we all have in our lives that restrict us in the way that we think about things and do things. But very, very, very in depth.
Wow.
And that's really 14 hours with a 1/2 an hour break in between, and that's it.
That's crazy. I will have to have a look into him a bit more for sure. Do you is it just kind of speeches, or is there because I think I saw that you follow the raw diet and stuff. Is that anything to do with it as well?
Yeah.
Like the smoothies and stuff that you were doing?
No, that's totally different. But I mean, he does talk about what is important that goes in your body and how it is important is to move and look after your health. But no, you have to just YouTube him and just listen to him talk for a bit, and I think you'll be highly surprised in a nice way. You'll be delighted. I've not heard anyone that hasn't got something from it. And he's interviewed loads of famous people all around the world as well, and talks about their stories. And
that's really cool. You'll have to
no, that was awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to send us the his name again, just so we don't.
And you won't.
Yeah. But
yeah,
we'll
I will do. I'll send it to you so you don't forget.
Thank you. Ben will probably remember, but no, me.
But I could talk all day about this subject anyway, because it's life-changing.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. That's really cool. Sounds like you've had an awesome 4 days, and we're definitely check them out as well.
Well, it's life-changing. It really is. I mean, I've watched hours worth of his videos over the years. So's Luke as well, and just some amazing life skills that you can put into your own life, which has really helped me along my own healing journey from all the experiences that I've been through in my life. And they say where focus goes, energy flows, right? And that certainly is very, very true. No matter what situation you're in, you can. There's always multiple ways of looking at something, and we create our own thoughts. We can choose what to think, and we can choose how to feel about certain situations. So once you kind of get into that way of thinking, every experience you go through in life, you find that there's always something really good to come from it.
Yes. 100%. We definitely agree with that, and
it's all about breaking stuff down, isn't it? You have to peel back the layers.
Yeah, and also remembering that you are in control of, like you said, your own thoughts and stuff. Like, for sure, we all have our good and bad days and stuff, but sometimes you wake up in the morning and, you feel maybe a bit negative, but at the end of the day, it is also up to you to kind of find that positive. Find the positivity in you.
Yeah, of course it is. And
it's always there.
That's extremely important. Not everybody wakes up in the morning happy every single day, springing out of bed. So, it is constant work, but that, you are able to change your thought process and get yourself into a positive state. And then, the day's not over, it's just beginning from there on, really.
For sure, yeah, definitely. And there's always good and bad, and even I guess in the times that we're currently in now, obviously it's different for everyone, and we have said this in one of our other podcasts as well, but it's different for everyone, obviously, with what's going on, but there has definitely been positives in all this, as well as the not so good stuff as well.
Yeah, of course there is. I mean, what was the saying last year? If you can't go outside, go inside. And just to be able to apply that even more, really to sit back and assess the situation that you're in and to be grateful of everything that you do have, when lockdown happened, obviously nobody was expecting it. And, I mean, you guys know as well, it's, when you're travelling on the road and that's your home and that's where you live, and someone tells you that you can't sleep on the streets, when I say sleep on the streets, I mean sleep in a vehicle on the road. It puts you in a situation where how can I say it? Well, like, so all the borders were closed, so we weren't allowed to go back home. And you know, when you're travelling in your van, there was nowhere to go. But we've made some friends along the way, and someone very, very kindly said to us, you know, we can come and stay on their land with them.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we stayed there for 12 weeks. We were actually met up with some friends, Path of Ra.
Oh yeah.
If you're listening, guys, hello. Some awesome friends of ours. Yeah, they're travelling in a yellow minibus. They're in the south of Spain as well. So we all ended up doing lockdown together, which was, yeah.
Were you in Spain?
Again, so many experiences. So yeah, we've I'm currently in Spain now.
Yeah.
I am in Andalusia somewhere, which is in the south of Spain. I know you guys know, but in case someone's listening, they're not sure where that is. We spend a lot of time along the beaches and in the mountains, and right now where we are, we're in a little community which we found through just chatting to people that you meet on the road along the way, and someone will say, you know, come here or come check this place out. And initially we came here just for a week, and then we ended up staying for 4 months with the odd exceptional break, like I said earlier, to do the Tony Robbins UPW event. So we rented an Airbnb while we could do that, just because it was involving a lot of exercise in between all the talking as well. And you know, living in a small space, there's nowhere to jump up and down so much.
We can relate. Do. Definitely.
Is that where you were for lockdown when it first happened?
Yeah, so we were in Andalusia at the time of lockdown. So we are in 2021 now. I've been in Spain with Luke since 2017.
Oh, cool. What, in the van?
So, no. Okay. So, we've been in Spain since 2017. I can take you back a little bit if you like.
Go for
definitely.
It.
Like, elaborate a bit more on kind of, even obviously, what you're doing right now for those who potentially don't know and stuff. Just throw it out there.
Yeah, sure. So we're living in the van now. We've been in the van for coming up to 2 years. Prior to that, we were renting several houses around Spain. So we lived in Alicante, Cordoba, Malaga, Kittens. We kind of moved around. The reason we ended up in Spain actually is a slightly crazy story, but I can look at it now on the good side, if you like, because like I was talking earlier on about experiences. I've been through a lot, and to be where I am now is incredible. So, with how far can I go back?
As far as you like.
As far as your mind will.
Would love. I mean, I'm really interested in you know, what it is that you've been through exactly and the full story. And like I said, when I came across it all, I was just from the little things that I heard, it was just like, I'd love to know more, because like you said, you definitely seem to have been through a lot. And I think it's just a great story to really get out there and share with others, and just, like, honestly go for it, because I'm really intrigued, and you seem so positive and just full of life. And I guess, you know, you have, from what I've seen so far, it seems like you have so many reasons. But yeah, no, you really do. So I was like, I need to chat to this girl.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, there's a lot of untold on Instagram. I say untold. There's a lot more in my past that I haven't shared with the world yet. I am on a huge healing journey, physically, emotionally, mentally, and so... Yeah, where are we? 2021 now. We've been living in the van for coming up to 2 years. Prior to that, we lived in houses in different areas throughout Spain. So if I take you back to 2015, I had a cardiac arrest. Now, a cardiac arrest is when it's very different from a heart attack. A cardiac arrest is when your heart literally stops. And when you stop, you're dead. It was a very, very traumatic experience at the time. It left me in a wheelchair. I was paralysed all down the right-hand side of my body. I was unable to walk. I was unable to talk. I obviously couldn't work. Like, my whole world had just been changed upside down. And I also have a very bad endometriosis. I'm not sure if you've heard of that. It's without going into too much detail, I have very extreme monthly menstrual cycles.
Yeah.
Very, very painful, and so that kind of takes me off the planet for a little while. But the combination of the two, so I was left in a wheelchair, I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk, and I was heavily on morphine. Now, at the time, I had a house that I had been renting out, so I was a landlord, and it was very successful. I absolutely loved what I did. Prior to that, I was an interior designer, but I project manage a lot of garage conversions.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So I did that for a couple of years. I also taught hair extensions and worked absolutely crazy hours. There's a lot more to this story which we may come back to, but let's just say I've been through a lot, and overworked, overused, and physically, emotionally, mentally drained, and I had a cardiac arrest. And it forced me to sell everything I owned because I wasn't able to work and I couldn't pay the mortgage. So I put the house on the market, and that sold. And then the reason we decided to move to Spain was because the cost of living was just so much cheaper than it is in London. And so we sold up absolutely everything, put all our belongings in a box. And I must say, Luke did the majority of the work because I was physically unable at the time. Like, I was really, really sick. I was on death's door and everything was crazy, you know. We had no idea where we were going. And you know, these are all just like new experiences for the both of us, really, to be selling this house and selling everything we owned and putting everything into a box and driving 2,000 miles away. So we, in fact, the day before we left to drive to Spain, my cat that I had of 13 years passed away that very morning, and I was absolutely heartbroken. Like, I'd had this little guy with me since the age of 17, I think, when I left school. And so that was just like another spanner in the works. And
how long did it take you to, like, when it all happened until the day you moved to Spain, did you always have it in mind that you would one day maybe live in Spain? Or was it just like okay, this has happened, we need to figure something out, Spain, let's go? Like, you know, how did that kind of...
Okay, why Spain? So when I was younger, I went on holiday with my parents a few times, and then I came back to Spain when I was 16 or so with a boyfriend that I had at the time, and I absolutely love the place. Like, it's the weather's beautiful, the culture's nice, and the scenery is amazing, and it was a place that I was familiar with, that I'd already been to before, that I knew that I would feel comfortable going back to. And we had a little look online, and we did look at other places throughout Europe as well, and we were looking, and we were just trying to find out how much it was to rent somewhere, what we were going to do about a vehicle, and all these questions that we had to have answered. And in a very short period, so I sold the house on March 21st, 2017. We moved to Spain on, I think, the 3rd or 4th of April.
Oh, wow.
So very, very quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
So within 2 weeks of having the money in the account from selling the house, I and Luke looked online and just really did our research into finding somewhere that we could live, and we found a nice little house in Alicante. Basically decided, this place felt right, and just sent them the deposit for 6 months rent up front without even viewing the property or knowing anything about the town. It was just in Alicante, and that was kind of all we knew, and it was close to the beach, and we thought, this is going to be the perfect place for me to be able to get into the next step with getting better. Because when we first drove to Spain, just after selling the house, I was still in the wheelchair, so I wasn't unable to walk at the time. So we were kind of looking for a property that had no stairs, that had a bath, really easy access. And unfortunately, none of those things happened when we came to Spain. Like, we were on a 3-story house, so really tight spiral staircases. Luke had to kind of carry me upstairs and downstairs to the bathroom and to bed every night. But just to be able to be somewhere where the weather was nice, we were safe,
mm-hmm.
and we had enough money in the bank to not have to worry for a while, that we could really focus, for both of us, on our health, and try and get in a position where I was able to walk again and look after myself. And so we had several moves throughout the time that we were in Spain. That contract ended, and then we moved somewhere else where the rent was a lot cheaper. And that was, again, each of these experiences I could go into in so much detail, because they really are kind of unique, I would say. When we were when we left that house and we went to Cordoba, we went from renting a house that was €1,300 a month to €200 a month. And
Nice.
the €200 a month house by far was just amazing, because it was in the middle of a pine forest, and it had a little lake that ran beside the house. And we were
sounds
just immersed in nature, and it was like this old little cortijo place. It had no electricity, it had no running water, the toilets didn't work. Like, it was basically just a shell. And again, we didn't realise that until we got there. We took a gamble. The location looked good, the price was right. It meant that we could make the money last a lot longer now, And so, we were there for a few months, and then we moved somewhere else, and then we moved again. And then, so at this point, we were in Andalusia, and we were living in a house, and the money was coming low. And me and Luke were kind of discussing and deciding, what our next move was going to be.
Were either of you still, working in this time, or obviously I'm assuming you were perhaps not able to, but what was Luke doing? Like, when you had to leave and when it all happened, did Luke just have to kind of quit his job, or was he self-employed, or?
So Luke was currently at the time a full-time carer for his mum, and he won't mind me speaking about this now, because again, Luke's come on an incredible journey himself, and he's actually got his own YouTube channel now where he talks about his own experiences and overcoming depression and the things that he's had to deal with in his life. So he has a mum that's got schizophrenia, and to quite extreme degree. So he spent a lot of his life with his brother taking care of his mum. And then, so Luke and I got into a relationship in 2013. I actually met him at the gym. He was my personal trainer, and we became best of friends, and we just started hanging out more and more and more, and then we became best friends. And then a year or so later, I'd really fallen in love with him, and for me it was, I had to be in a relationship with this guy, or I just couldn't have him in my life, because it was too much for us just to be friends. So, I told him how I felt, and we had some long conversations, and over the weekend we decided to get into a relationship together. And that was summer of 2014. And then, so in 2015, just a few months after we'd been together in this wonderful new relationship, is when I had the cardiac arrest. It was totally out of nowhere, and it really shook us both. So Luke ended up being my full-time carer. I was not able to walk, I couldn't talk. Like, he would literally carry me from the bedroom to the bathroom. He would help bathe me, brush my hair, get me dressed. And this went on every day, continuous, for 2 years, until it got to the point where I had to sell the house. I wasn't able to pay the mortgage, and so that's how comes we ended up selling the house and looking for an alternative lifestyle, which is what initially ended up bringing us to Spain. So, when we came to Spain, I was still in a wheelchair, like I wasn't walking. And throughout the time that we've been in Spain, I've been slowly getting better and better. And now, thank you. Now I've been walking and talking for about 18 months. So still not long, really. But now, I'm on the momentum. My health's getting better and better every month.
So
How did you sort of approach? I mean, I don't even know where you'd start, but how did you approach getting back to health? How does that, whilst all this crazy stuff's going on, was it a story of just educating yourself, or like, I don't even
Yeah,
know how you
totally
approach that.
that.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so the doctors told me that I would never walk again. They gave me less than 5 years to live because the percentage of people that survive cardiac arrests, unfortunately, don't make it through another 5 years. I'm here 6 years later now, walking and talking, and so I beat all the odds.
So good. It gives me the chills. Like, it's so warming, and just, that's so amazing. I just can't even imagine how you must feel.
Sometimes it's hard to find the right words to explain it.
Yeah.
Like, I just hope that anyone's listening that's got any disability that stops them from being able to live the life that they want to live. You know, there is hope, and I really hope that my story motivates people to look outside of the box, you know, and to, I mean, Luke did an enormous amount of research online. As I said, he was already my personal trainer when we first met, so he was very knowledgeable on health anyway. And through a lot more research online, we found different techniques and things that worked. Like, he took me to see a chiropractor initially, and there was, like, I had a small feeling in my leg from one appointment with this chiropractor. So Luke really looked deep into that aspect of things, and of course, keeping food as clean as possible, fasting, so only eating once every 24 hours, and just making all these slight adjustments and trying new different things, really. But Luke's been incredible, yeah. I mean, the amount of times he's massaged me to sleep where I've been in agony, or he, you know, given me a lymph massage, because the lymph nodes in my legs get blocked up and there'd be swelling and pumping where I wasn't able to walk so much. So he would relieve certain points in my legs that could help the flow, if you like, to get me back to where I am now. So yes, there were so many different aspects of getting to where I am now. So many different things. But yeah,
I guess obviously the experience, if anyone else, you know, has a similar one or even their own, I guess obviously it's different for everyone. So you can't kind of say exactly what you did, or exactly, you know, you can't be like, oh, do this, this and this because it worked. Like, everyone's different. But if you had kind of one thing to say to someone who was in perhaps a similar, you know, their own situation but similar, what would you say to them in the sense of, you know, how to kind of pull through it, I guess you could say?
Emotionally, I would say never give up. Always stay focused on what the end result is. And health-wise, you've really got to watch what you put in your body and move your body. And, you know, even if you are paralysed and you're in a wheelchair, if your whole, you know, even if you've got just one arm that works, you know, to move that and to just move as much as possible, and to have other people, you know, move your body for you and try all these different techniques. Again, like, it really depends on what the disability, if you want to call it that, or the illness is. Like I said, I've got endometriosis as well. My period started when I was 8 years old. So I've always been trying to look for ways to cure that. And they're not half as bad now as they originally were. But I mean, with the cardiac arrest, I should probably tell you that was actually my third one. So, like I said, I could go way back. I had a pretty traumatic life before 2010. You sound like a miracle.
Like, you just keep like some superhuman. Just keep coming back. That's incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I initially had a cardiac arrest in 2010. It didn't leave me paralysed. I wasn't in a wheelchair. I was obviously very, very ill and struggling with daily activities. 2 weeks later, I had a second cardiac arrest. And to be honest with you, if I'm really honest, it didn't make me slow down. It pushed me even harder to work, even harder to think, okay, I've really got to get myself in a position where I can retire, if you like, and have enough money behind me so that I didn't have to do anything. And as crazy as that sounds, and whether it was reality or not, it was kind of just what kept me going. But it was crazy because I was working, and I wasn't putting my health first.
Yeah.
And then in 2015 is when I had a third one. And I say I wasn't putting my health first. I would still exercise a lot, so I still go to the gym 7 nights a week. I'd box every single morning for 7 days a week, and I'd dance for a couple of nights a week as well. So
you're doing a lot.
I was still doing a lot of physical activity, but just pushing my body to the absolute limit, you know, thinking, I've already survived 2 cardiac arrests, I'm indestructible. And yeah, I wasn't indestructible.
I mean,
but, you know, I really do believe that every experience in my life has got me to where I am today now. And my hardest days have become my best days.
Yeah.
They really have. Because I'm able to help other people now and, you know, make a difference.
Definitely. Wow. I mean, obviously you had, you know, now you've had 3. After, I'm guessing, the first one, you probably didn't think kind of much of it in a sense of it could happen again. But have you ever been told that there could be
No, of course
more?
I didn't.
Wow.
Well, after the last one, I was told from doctors that I probably wouldn't live in 5 years.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, I'd already had multiple cardiac arrests within the first one ever happening in okay, you know, and it did make me think that, you know, I might not be here in a few years, but I didn't let that thought enter my head so much.
Okay.
Like, I thought, I'm not going to be a statistic. I am alive. I am going to make it. I am going to be walking and talking. Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really listen to what the doctor said at all.
And I guess that, like, what kind of changed from, you know, back then and now? You know, how obviously you've changed your diet. You do kind of more inner work and you make more time for yourself. But has anything else kind of has it made you realise anything else in the sense of, obviously I know you've already said that you've slowed down, but what do you do differently these days than that you didn't before? You know, everything's taught you.
Yeah, like definitely about going in more. Everything's a lot more, you know, a lot more working on the emotions and the spiritual side. And meditation is one of the practices that I try and do often as possible. Just being able to sit in silence and clear all your thoughts and find yourself, you know. And yeah, so many things. Going for long walks in nature.
So, speaking of long walks in nature, this has been kind of coming to my head, and I wanted to get it in there as well about obviously, you know, when you started to kind of come back around, I'd seen about Bodhi. So which is really, like, it's amazing that you have him now.
Yeah, it's incredible. So if I go back to 2018, 2018. So we'd been living in Spain for a year now, moving around, and we'd finally settled in a nice little house in the Campo. And I was beginning to move around the garden and walk more. And on my very first walk, Luke and I decided to just go for a walk around the countryside. And this was like my first ever walk outside of the property, and with no time limit or idea of how long I'd be walking for or how far we'd go. It was just like, right, we're just going to go for a walk and just move and be outside and see how the day goes. And we were walking, and it wasn't overly fast paced, but we were walking, and about an hour into our walk, we were walking down this country lane, and this little puppy come out from nowhere. And he was really, really cute, and we kind of went over to him, approached him, and he was a little bit timid, and he kind of tucked his head in between his shoulders, and I put my hand out so he could sniff my hand, and then I patted him on the head, and I bent down and I gave him a little kiss on the top of his head, and then I said, "See you later, buddy." And then me and Luke carried on walking, and as we're walking, we're turning around, and this little puppy is following us, And we're really trying hard not to make eye contact, and we're just like, no, you know, we're going to distract him. He must live around here somewhere.
Yeah.
So we kept on walking, but he was like staying right behind us the entire time, about 100 yards or so. And he eventually followed us all the way back home to where we were living at the time. And we thought, what are we going to do? This little guy had no collar on. So we thought, okay, we'll take him to the vets the next day and see if he's microchipped. And he wasn't microchipped. So we had no way of knowing where he came from. But we left the gate open to the property, and we thought he can just come in and go as much as he likes. And we thought we'd just, play it by ear and see what happens. Well, a month later, he's still doing this. And then on Christmas morning, we woke up, and for the very first time, he didn't come to see us that day. And in my gut, I just felt like, where's this guy coming and seeing us every day for the past month now? And I looked at my phone, and there was a WhatsApp message, and somebody had messaged me, and they said, oh, thank you so much for looking after my dog. He's been missing for a month, because at this point we put a collar on him with our phone number in case he ever did go back to where he came from. They would be able to contact us and, tie up the loose ends and get him back to his home. So I was a little sad, we'd had this little guy with us for a month or so now, and he'd just returned home, and his owners were ever so grateful to have him back, and we thought that was the end of that. Well, we woke up the next morning on Boxing Day, and like every other day before, he's come running through the gate, doing backflips to see us, really, really, really excited. And we thought, okay, now what do we do? So having their contact details, we messaged them and we said, look, we haven't even been encouraging this guy to come back. We've left the gate open, but we've not fed him once. All we do is give him love and attention, and he keeps coming back to us. So we spoke with them, and then I explained to them that, this little guy is he's my angel. I really reckon that he'd been sent from above, because every day that he was coming to see us, I was becoming more active, and I was looking forward to seeing him. And we were playing in the garden and going for walks each day, and longer walks. And so they decided to let us take ownership of him and keep him. So that's how little Bodhi came into our lives. And the reason we decided to name him Bodhi, it actually in Sanskrit means the process of conscious awakening. So I thought that was fairly relevant to the situation that I was in, and he reacted to it straight away, so we ended up calling him that.
That's incredible.
Proper like sign.
Definitely meant to
a bit
be.
of universe magic going on there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so, at this time in our lives, we had just bought our van. So a few months prior to that, me and Luke were in the kitchen at the house where we lived, and we were just cooking some food and talking about our next move, because the money from the sale of the house was running lower and lower each month, paying rent and bills and food and living, and neither of us were bringing an income still, because every day was really just focused on being able to get better, so we could get to the point where we could work again, right? So we were in the kitchen cooking, and I went outside and I was on YouTube, and I just typed in vegan recipes because I wanted some inspiration and something new to cook that day. And I came across this family of 3 living in a van, and it was what we eat in a day. And maybe you've heard of her, Jinty Fell.
No, I don't
If you haven't, check her out. She's been off of Instagram for a while, but I believe that she's back now, and she documented her travel journey with her and her partner and their little daughter that they had. And I just saw this family, and they looked so happy, and they had the most basic of vans. Like, all they had in there was a bed and a little stove to cook on, and they didn't have any cupboards or any fancy fairy lights or all these things that you see in the Instagram pictures. And I just thought, wow, these guys look so happy. And I like I said, I was literally just looking for something to cook that day. So I went back into the house and I said to Luke, I said, do you think we could live in a van and travel? And he looked at me and he said, yeah, let's do it. And
I love that.
that was it. Every day for the next few days, we were both online. We were searching for a van, and A few days later, Luke found one. We decided to go for a Mercedes Sprinter just because of the reviews and what we'd heard people saying about how reliable they were. So we were like, right, okay, let's get one of those. We found one, and it was in England at the time, actually close to where both Luke and I are from. But because of the situation that I was in and just being able to, beginning to walk again, I wasn't up for travelling on an aeroplane, and, it was just too much physically for my body to be able to do. And I wasn't in the position where Luke could leave me and I could look after myself. So we took a huge gamble. The people probably thought we were really crazy, but we rang them up and we said, look, we're just going to transfer you all the money for the van right here, right now. Don't let anybody else come and see it. We don't know how we're going to pick it up, how we're going to get it to Spain, but something says to us, this is the van. And so we did it.
That is
2 weeks later, we had a van.
It's awesome.
How did you get it across in the end?
So we've both got family still in England, and Luke's dad, we're very, very fortunate that he really helped us out massively. He went and picked up the van for us, drove it back to his house, and then kept it in the garden until we worked out how we were going to get it from England to Spain. And so a couple of months later, when I was getting better and better and better, I knew that I had to be able to fly back to England with Luke to be able to drive this van back. And that's what we did. We flew to England, picked up the van, said hello to everybody because we hadn't seen anyone for a couple of years because we've been, living in Spain. And we drove the van back to Spain, and that's where we converted it.
That is
so cool.
Yeah, that's insane. That's just putting money down on a van like that and just going for it.
We just had to go for it.
I mean,
but everything felt right, and we didn't know the hows or the whens, but we knew the why, and we knew that we just had to get it. And if we focused on that enough, sure enough, everything would come together, and it did.
Yeah, starting with the why. That's the best
Exactly.
best way to do it.
For sure.
Wow.
Of course it is,
So did you convert it all by yourself?
If you know your why, then...
Yeah, then the how and the what.
So, okay, we bought Sorry, what was that, Ben?
No, I'm just finishing off the end of the start with why.
Ben gets excited when people talk about put the why first and all that.
Yeah, but that's what it's all about, right? Because a lot of people, they have an aspiration to do something, but they don't know how they're going to get there. And there's so many questions, but if you really focus on the end goal and know why it is that you want to do what it is that you want to do, you will get there. The same rule applies to the cardiac arrest. Doctors told me I'd never walk again, and I probably wouldn't live 5 years, but nope, I have visions of living halfway up a mountain and being surrounded by animals because animals are my thing, and so that's the story with getting the van. But it's 20 years old, and the reason again we went for an older van is because we just heard so many horror stories of people that have broken down, and with the newer vans the engines cost so much to replace, and so do the parts and the labour and the time. We thought it just doesn't make sense, so we got an older van, and somebody had already started the electrics and the wiring on it because their intention was to turn it into a camper van themselves. So we ended up paying $5,500 for the van. That was the money that we transferred straight over to put the vehicle in our name and make it ours. And then when we got it to Spain, we spent 3 months converting it day and night. To get it to where it is now. So I think we spent about $10,000 in total to get it to the way that we wanted it to, which was way over budget.
But I mean, it's still not a bad budget for a full conversion.
I mean, for what you've got it for as well. Wow. So how long's that been? So when's this? 2018. So you've done 2 years, 3 years. Wait, what year is it?
2018, what year are we in? So we bought the van in 2000. So I sold the house in 2017. We moved to Spain. Then in 2018, when the money was running low, we were working out our next move, and then that's how we came about van life. Bought the van at the end of that year, picked it up the beginning of 2019, and so May 2019 we started in the van, living in the van. And the story of how we met Bodhi was in the middle of the van build. So we hadn't intended to take on any animals, and this little guy came into my life and got me walking and moving a lot more, and you know, we just decided that we'd make it work, and he'd come on this little journey with us.
That's so cool.
So obviously there's not just 3 of you, there are, I don't even know how many of you in that van now. How did that come around? Because that is like, and how
Do
is
you
it
mean
living?
all the cats that we have?
By the way, I love the names, because they're all named after mushrooms, right?
That's correct.
Oh,
yeah,
like,
mushrooms.
How is it living with 5 cats? 5 cats or 4 cats? 5 cats.
Yeah, 5
And
cats. Yeah,
how did the
Mummy
names
and
come
all our
around?
kittens. Well, okay, so during the van build, as you heard, we just rescued Bodhi. Now, 2 weeks later, we were at a little cafe close by to the house where we'd lived. We popped in for a little lunch, which wasn't something that we did very, very often, but we were right at the end of the van build, and we were up day and night, and the hours and days were just getting longer and longer and longer. And, you know, for anyone that's converted the van themselves, I'll totally be able to relate to this, because it seems to be the closer you get to finishing the van, the longer it feels like you're never going to get to it. You know, it's just day and night, day and night, day and night. So we went for something to eat, and there was this little cat, and mangy kind of looking thing. She had all the hair missing on the top of her ears, and she didn't look in sort of a fabulous condition. But she came and sat with me while we were sitting at the cafe, and Luke and I had a little discussion about it, and we thought, well, we've got Bodhi, and maybe he'll like a little friend, you know. And we'd found out that she was actually a nuisance to this restaurant where we found her. And they'd called for someone to come and take her the next day, and she was going to be put down.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, we thought, no, we can't let that happen. Let's take her on this adventure with us. And not knowing how it would work, I mean, we were a few days from moving into the van at this point and getting on the road. And we, again, like, you know, we knew why we were doing it. It was to save her life, you know. We thought if she lives with us for a week and jumps out the van and never comes back, well, then at least she's free.
Yeah.
You know, she still gets to live her life. So we thought, well, you know, that's probably the worst that can happen. Let's take her in. So we took her in, and while Luke was finishing the last touches on the van, I was trying to adjust Bodhi to this cat that we'd brought in, who he thought was his dinner. And yeah, he was really well behaved. Like, it took a lot of training. We kept him on the leash and walked him around the house and walked him close to her and then walked away from her, and just to get them used to living in the same environment, threat to each other. And then I was feeding them in the van every single day for these few days while Luke was finishing the van, just to get them familiar with the place, and that was their place to eat, you know, and that's normally where animals come back to. So about a week or so later is when we hit the road, and yeah, so the 4 of us were living in the van, and it wasn't long before we noticed the little cat, her nipples were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and when I was looking online, it looked like every sign that she was pregnant. So we took her to the vet, and they assured us that she was not pregnant. So we thought, okay. Yeah, interesting. Oh, and the reason, you said about mushrooms, the reason we called her Mushrooms was actually because we found her from the cafe, and again, that's a whole nother story, but there was a joke one day with one of the waitresses and ordering some food, and it was a funny joke to me and Luke at the time, so we thought, we'll just call her Mushrooms. So yeah, we ended up calling her Mushrooms. But yeah, no, the vet told us she wasn't pregnant, so we just kind of continued travelling, and week by week she was getting bigger and bigger, and then we found out definitely she was pregnant, and like about 3 or 4 weeks of being on the road, is when she gave birth to the kittens in the van, in the bottom of our shower, in the middle of summer, in like 40 degrees heat. It was...
Wow.
Excuse me, it was crazy. It was so hot. And yeah, we had all these little fans on her to try and keep her as cool as possible. And like, again, we didn't know if we needed a vet there. There were so many unanswered questions. Like, we're just about to watch this cat give birth, you know, and it was incredibly exciting. It was like one of the most beautiful moments of my life to watch all these little guys be born in the van, and it really was an incredible experience. It really was. So yeah, she gave birth to 5 kittens over a course of 8 hours. It was pretty intense. Luke and I stayed by her side the entire time, and yeah, really healthy birth. They all came out really easily, no problems with any of them. And then it was like, right, as you know, we're going to let her breastfeed them, and then at some point we're going to have to find new homes for these guys, because there's no way we can travel now with like 6 cats and a dog. Like, where's everyone going to sleep? These kittens aren't going to stay in like a little box size for forever. They're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and like where are they going to go? But as the time went on, these guys, they just became part of our family too, and we made it work, you know. So we decided to keep them all. So that's how we ended up with so many cats in a van.
What are they like in the van? Especially, like, do you just let them out freely and then they just come back, or do you have to, you know, take them out yourselves? Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, so when the kittens were born, the mummy cat stayed, so Mushroom, she stayed in with the kittens for the first 24 hours. Yeah. And then the very next day after giving birth, she was outside for kind of half an hour here and there at a time, getting her own time, and then she'd go back in and attend to the kittens. And I forgot what you asked me now.
Was it like with them living in a van and going outside? Because obviously cats like to explore and stuff. Do they always come back, especially if you're moving around with the van?
Yeah. So when they were about 3 weeks old, they were pretty much hopping and bouncing everywhere and off everything in the van. Like, it was... It sounds like fun, but we didn't get a lot of sleep for the first few months of them being born, let me tell you that. But it was magical to have so much life in the van with us. And when they were about 3 weeks old is when we actually just first let them outside, supervised, but we sat with them, and they were just bouncing around off of each other and running around, and still being breastfed at this time. In fact, Mushrooms breastfed them up until they were 16 weeks old. So that's 4 months. Okay. That's 4 months old, which is a lot longer than what I ever thought a cat breastfed for, because normally you pick up kittens when they're about 7 or 8 weeks old. But they always stayed with Mushrooms. Mushrooms never left Bodhi's sight. Bodhi never leaves our sight. Yeah, so about 3 weeks old we start letting them outside. And I should also say that Luke built a 5-foot scratch post in the van, so it's a pretty big scratch post for all the kittens to run up, and that's kind of how they learned to climb before we took them outside to begin to learn climbing trees. But yeah, initially I would let them outside just for a few hours at a time, and then bring them inside. They'd sleep most of the day, and then run around all over the bed and jump all over us throughout the night, and then repeat. And then as time went on, they just became accustomed to it, really. Yeah. And every time before I feed them their food, I whistle for them, I call them, and they know it's dinner time, and that really helps, to be honest with you. So just having them on a routine, and they're such a happy little bunch, and we're all really happy together in the van with family. Wherever we are, they are. And so we have absolutely no troubles. Wherever we go now, we literally open the door within seconds of being at a new park up spot, open the door and just let them all run out and do their own thing, and let them explore.
That's pretty interesting, especially considering, like, you know, when you move house or something, you're meant to leave them inside for like 2 weeks or something.
Where
that
do
was
they,
my belief growing up as well.
where do they go when you drive? Where do they go when you drive?
All over the place.
That's awesome.
Same as when we go to sleep at night, like, they don't have their own particular beds. They kind of seem to move around all over the place and swap beds with each other.
That's so cool.
We have one bed up the top that is on top of our fridge. And when all the kittens were little, all 5 kittens, and the mother would sleep up the top together, and that's where she breastfeed them all and just spend a lot of her time with them there. And then as they got bigger and bigger, like, so a lot of the time they sleep on the dashboard, they'll sleep on the driver's chair, the passenger chair. They'll sit on our laps when we're driving. Sometimes they'll be in the back of the van, sleeping.
What's Bodhi like with them, or what are they like with Bodhi?
So yeah, when the kittens were first born, again, we were like, oh, how are we going to manage this one with a dog? You know, how is he going to take to them? And he kind of just took them on as his own family, really. He's like their little security dog now. Like, he'll do absolutely anything to protect them. He really will. He's amazing. So if anyone comes anywhere near our van, or there's a walker with a dog nearby, Bodhi will keep him away from the van, and honestly, he will just do anything to love and protect his little cats. He really will. Like I've said to people before, he loves his van, but he loves his cats 10 times more.
Wow, that's really incredible. What would you say has been kind of the best thing about this whole story, or this whole journey? You know, like, what's been the kind of, is there a particular, obviously, you know, maybe kind of meeting Bodhi and all these cats that came along, but is there anything else that kind of really stands out from this whole journey?
I would say all the experiences combined, really, and for me now, knowing that life happens for you and not to you is a massive thing to come to realization on, because when you realize that, you can kind of look at any experience that you go through in life and know that there is a reason for it happening, and that there is something positive to learn from it. And if you can turn that around to help other people, then even better. So yeah.
And do you, like, what's your kind of, how do you live life in the sense now? Do you just live every day, day by day, and just see what happens? Or do you still kind of like to have, you know, plans, I guess, for the near future or for longer term? Like, how do you kind of go about that?
Okay, so we're both working on multiple projects at the moment. Building a foundation with, again, so many different projects. Like, Luke's got his YouTube channel that he's started now, talking about his experiences and overcoming his struggles and becoming a full-time carer for me, and all the things that me and him went through together. There was a whole other part of my past that we've not even come to yet, but maybe that'll be another podcast, because it's very off topic to van life, but very appropriate for life in general, like for everything else that I've been through to be where I am now. I'm still very much focusing on my health, but because I get to spend so much time in my day with the animals, I film them a lot, and I'm putting together some videos.
That's cool.
And I want to be able to start a YouTube channel called Lucky Travel Cats, where I can just document the journey of all these little guys being born in a van, and how their lives came about, and all that kind of thing, and be able to raise money to rescue abused and abandoned animals. Eventually is the long-term goal. So yeah, really just need to sort of set up a foundation on that and bring awareness to it as well. And raise some money so we can rescue some animals.
Definitely makes sense as well for what you've done so far, like you said, in both your life and Bodhi and the cats' lives. Like, it definitely makes sense, and it definitely seems like you're going down the right path in that regards. But yeah, and then do you have, like...
But I guess because of COVID, no one really knows with travel where you go, where you can't go. You know, you've got the new laws come into place that put restrictions on travel. So we're kind of weighing up a whole new a whole load of new other things at the moment to decide what it is that we're going to do and where we're going to go, so we can continue what we're doing. And again, the main focus just being getting as healthy and fit as possible, so we're able to do all these things that we want to be able to do.
For sure. Do you have any like grand experiences that you'd like to that you have in mind? It could even be to do with like the animal shelters and that, but do you have anything in particular that you've perhaps always wanted to do and want to do even more now that life is I guess so precious? Or
I've always been very passionate about animals throughout my entire life. It's the animals that have got me through every situation. Like, animals just always give you an unconditional amount of love no matter what. And for me, that's always been my, what's kept me going. So to be able to give back into some rescue animals would be incredible. I just want to be able to do that even more.
Yeah. And do you plan on, I know you said that obviously you don't know, especially with travel restrictions and that as well, but do you hope to stay in Spain, for the long term?
Yeah, I mean, the idea would be to raise enough money and create awareness to be able to buy some land at the end of this year, I'm hoping.
Wow. That makes sense. Yeah, no, for sure. Well, fingers crossed that, that can definitely happen, but by the sounds of what you've been through so far, whatever happens is going to be amazing.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Like we said before, it always comes back to the whys. If you know why you're doing it,
then you'll figure it out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, that's so incredible. Like, if anyone wants to reach out to you in regards to speaking about their own story or just hearing a bit more about yours or anything like that, where can they find you?
So Instagram is what I use the most, to be honest with you. Okay. So anyone that wants to contact me through there is more than welcome to. And yeah, I'd happily discuss my story again with anybody that wants motivation to be able to take the next step in their lives. Yeah,
nice. Well, we'll put your Instagram in the description below, and then people can reach out to you, and that'll be really, really awesome. But what final our last question that we ask on all podcasts, we just like to share it with everyone. What is your mantra, if you have one?
Oh. I don't know.
It's a hard one, eh?
Even if it's today's, what is today's do you have one for maybe, just, even if it's not like your life one or something that, or like a saying that you quite often use, and
probably the one that I've said throughout this podcast. That's Bodie barking, getting excited. You're protecting your cats, Bodie. He's just a person. The end, puppy. The end. We only speak to Bodie in Spanish.
Oh,
it helps us learn a little bit.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's really
awesome.
But
he knows more words than we know.
He's a Spanish dog after all.
Yeah, no, it would just be for me to remember that life happens for me and not to me.
Yeah, that's really good.
Just look at every situation in the best light possible.
Really like
give up hope,
Definitely. Wow. Well, it has been, I always say this on our podcasts, how inspiring it's been, but your story is just something else, and thank you so much for sharing it and for putting that awareness.
Really nice. Thank you for contacting me. It's been great having a little chat. I hope it does motivate some people out there. That would be my goal, to really help inspire and motivate other people to never give up, and no matter what's going on in your life, to know that you can get through it no matter what.
Definitely. 100%. Well, honestly, ever so grateful, and we will definitely keep in touch and keep updated on how things are going, and if there's any more animals coming in as well.
Yeah, sure.
But and then fingers crossed for the end of the year for you and Spain and your land and journey and just everything else. It's just absolutely amazing, and we feel really touched by what you've shared. Honestly, it's incredible.
You have been listening to the Less Trodden Path podcast with Laura and Benedict. Make sure you subscribe to us on whichever platform it is you're using. If you would like to feature on the Less Trodden Path podcast, then head over to our website thelesstroddenpath.com. Thank you for listening. The Less Trodden Path podcast is sponsored by imakesounds.com, music for content creators. If you're looking for royalty-free music to feature on your own podcast, blogs, YouTube videos and more, then head over to imakesounds.com.